Hello there, my name is Jabu Zwane, better known as Jabu Zwane, and I'm a mindset development specialist. Like many South Africans, I grew up in a township, and my township, like many others in South Africa, was also full of poverty, and I was no exception. I'm not going to concentrate on that for this talk, but what I do want to mention is talk a bit more about what happened when I got older. As I got older, I got exposed to a lot of opportunities. In fact, I secured quite a lot of opportunities, and I amassed quite a bit of wealth for myself. However, I found that it wasn't so much that I lacked resources, opportunities, or money, but there was something structurally wrong with my thinking. The way that I thought about money in relation to who I am as a person, the way I thought about success in relation to who I am to the society, and the way that I thought about my future in relation to who I will become once I have passed on. There was such a disconnection. I found, number one, that I thought of money as a tool to cover up for something that I lacked. I found that I looked at money as a tool to prove to people that I was wealthy, as opposed to using money as a tool to create more wealth. I found that I used my positions of authority and of influence that I got to secure later on in life, not to make an impact or make a change in life, but rather to show people that I was in charge, that I was the boss. Although I did everything I could to be kind and to be gentle to people, I found that there were certain structural thoughts that affected and impacted negatively the way that I made use of opportunities and made use of the power that I had. And with that in mind, I want to mention a couple of things to you. Right now, as young people in the age that you are at an age where you are wrestling with the issues of who you are as a person. Your identity is in its final stages of forming. And if you don't receive the right kind of information about who you are as a person, it's going to catch up with you later on in life like it did with me. It wasn't only with me, but as an entrepreneurship coach and a mindset development coach as well, I found that with many entrepreneurs, the problem also is with them was thinking. They could not think their way out of certain situations, and they were also very quick to make certain financial decisions which would not benefit their businesses. And when I sat down to coach them and to look at them, we could quite easily trace that it was more about the way of thinking, the relationship that they had with money. And sometimes if you've not had too much experience, for example, with money, you don't always understand the value of money and the purpose of money and how far 1 rand, for example, can take you. And so it's important to, even as young as you are right now, to begin to invest yourself, to invest your mind into business, into entrepreneurship, into understanding the language that informs business even as early as now. Because when you are older, it's a lot more difficult to wrap your mind around some of these concepts. Because when they become part of you and you grow with them, then they really get integrated foundationally into your way of thinking, which will then help in the future. Number 2, you've got to develop a deep sense of excellence and commitment even as young as you are right now. Martin Luther King Jr. talks about the blueprint of your life. And one of those blueprints that he speaks about is that you have to have a deep sense of commitment to excellence and a deep sense of your own integrity, your deep sense of your own somebodyness. And if you don't know who you are as a person, there are many things that you're going to try to secure in life. Cars, expensive houses, perhaps you get into drugs, perhaps you have multiple relationships, which in the end take away from the resources that you have secured to build more wealth for yourself and to improve your own life. And number 3, it's important that you have a goal or you have a resolve. I call it resolve. Resolve is a conscious decision. It's an awareness to use everything that you have into what you want to achieve in life, rather than being a victim of your own thoughts, being a victim of your own background, being a victim of some idea that someone of great influence has sold to you, which is not your own. It could even be your parent, but to rather have your own thoughts about what you want to achieve in life. Because one of the things that I wish I understood and that I want you to understand now as a young person is that you are an influenceable being. You are influenced by your relationships. The 5 people that you spend most of your time with will have the lion's share of how you get influenced. You are influenced by environment. The places that you go to the most are going to have an impact on how you interact with other people and who you become in society and what you think is important as a member of society concerning your own identity. And then number 3 is the institution. The laws, the pragmatic laws that you grow up with that tell you that if you do this, you're going to become that. The education that you're currently receiving, the law and order, the structures of law and order that you are under, the economic conditions that you're currently under, and the media that you're currently consuming. What are you receiving on a daily basis? How are you spending your time when you are on social media? Who are you following? Because you see, you are an influenceable being. And for as long as you don't understand that fact, you're going to find yourself at the mercy of 1,000 ideas without any direction of your own, without any thoughts of your own, without any dreams that are your own, that you can run with, that you're passionate about. If I understood that when I was younger, I do believe that my life would be 100% better than what it is currently.
The mindset of entrepreneurship, the science and the art of success. Now, in this class, you're going to learn what it takes to develop the entrepreneurship mindset. You're going to learn the science because the science speaks to practical steps, the mandatory steps, the laws that are required, that you have to adhere to in order to develop that mindset. And secondly, we're talking about the art because the art speaks to the uniqueness of each and every single entrepreneur's journey. The uniqueness lies on 2 important factors. It lies on one's personal design, as far as their cognitive structure, as far as their own different intelligences, whether it be IQ, whether it be emotional intelligence, whether it be their linguistic intelligence, or creative intelligence, or whatever any other sort of intelligence the person may have, unique to them. And then secondly, it also will speak to a person's personality, their own character traits, and their own individual journey in life. The other factor on which science lies on is the environment within which the entrepreneur has grown up or has been developed or has been groomed. And also where the entrepreneur is going to be taking on their own entrepreneurial journey as far as the culture, the economic structure, the political status, the social factors, social status. All of those different factors are unique to every entrepreneur and whatever industry that the entrepreneur might be in. Hence, entrepreneurship has to be both scientific and artistic. So this is the reason why mindset development is a scientific process of how thought develop within one's unique design. In the class, we're going to cover the following topics. 1, what is an entrepreneur? 2, what is entrepreneurship? 3, the 4 factors that impact entrepreneurial performance. And then lastly, developing the entrepreneurship mindset that is specifically suited for whatever industry that you may be operating in. So what is an entrepreneur? I describe an entrepreneur as a person who sets up a business or businesses, taking on financial risks and operational demands with the objective of generating profit. The Oxford Dictionary describes it as an individual who creates a business bearing most of the risks and enjoying most of the rewards. The entrepreneur is commonly seen as an innovator, a source of new ideas, goods, services, and business or procedures. Now, when we're talking about the topic of what is an entrepreneur, it is important also to understand what are certain character traits that we find commonly in entrepreneurs. Now, this is based on various sources and my own observation as an entrepreneur and as somebody who is involved in coaching entrepreneurs. And the first thing is that an entrepreneur has a vision. They are a visionary. And a vision is the imagined outlook of what the business is going to look like in the future. And that's what makes an entrepreneur a visionary. So without that image, it becomes very difficult to then to navigate the terrain of entrepreneurship. A visionary is somebody who carries the vision of what the business is going to look like in the future in their mind. They have imagined it. They can see in the future, this is going to be the kind of people that I'm going to be servicing. This is the kind of business. This is how big it's going to be. And a vision helps then the entrepreneur to navigate the terrain of entrepreneurship, or the journey of entrepreneurship. Secondly, an entrepreneur is a self-starter. So they don't wait for the stars to align, for things to fall into place, to have enough funds. They start working towards their vision even without having all the full resources. Hence the word being a self-starter, is that you do not wait for something else outside of yourself, an energy, a support structure, a propeller outside of yourself to get you to move. But the vision that you carry in your mind as far as how the business is going to look is what's going to propel you to begin to take the necessary steps to start your entrepreneurial journey. Entrepreneurs are self-motivated, which means that the vision drives them. The vision drives their passion. They don't have to be woken up by something else or someone else in the morning. They get up and put on their boots to go to work. Self-motivated. Entrepreneurs are risk takers. Looking at the descriptions that we've given so far, it's quite clear that risk is part and parcel of our entrepreneurial journey. There is a risk that you're going to have to take. There's some money that you're going to have to commit to the business. There is intellectual capital that you have to commit to the business. Physical risk that you're going to be taking as you're working long hours, often often applying yourself physically more than you normally would, even your 8-to-5 job or 9-to-5 job. There is also intellectual capital that you're going to be risking for the success of the business. The reason why it's a risk is because you may lose the money in the process. You may get tired and even get sick as you work long hours in trying to make the business very successful. And it may feel as if your intellectual capital is wasted, especially in a situation where your business doesn't succeed. And the possibility and the potential of the business not succeeding is there. It is a risk, and it is also, research has revealed several times that over 90% of businesses do not even make it past the first 3 years. And, or at the very least, they only start generating return and income after 3 years. And by that time, more than 90% of business owners or entrepreneurs have already quit. In other words, when you're taking on the task or the journey of being an entrepreneur, you are exposed to the risk of that kind of loss. An entrepreneur is committed. They have commitment. It means that in those times where everybody has the luxury of going home because maybe their time has passed, you're still in the office, or you're still at the store, or you're still out in the field, because you are bearing most of the risk, and the success of the business lies primarily on you. So commitment is an important part of that. An entrepreneur understands the importance of knowledge, and therefore they are knowledgeable. They're constantly acquiring more knowledge to increase their knowledge pool about the industry that they're part of, and understanding the markets, understanding competition. And we'll talk about that a bit later on. And entrepreneur is an innovator, a solutionist. They are an innovator because they seek solutions. They look at problems that people are facing, and they come up with solutions on how to solve those problems. Entrepreneurs are resourceful. They find a way to find resources, even though they may not have anything in the beginning. Entrepreneurs are learners. They're constantly learning. Every entrepreneur has to be a student of life. And we'll talk about some of the important lessons that an entrepreneur has to learn in order to become a successful entrepreneur and successful in their business ventures. Entrepreneurs are networkers. They connect with people. They create relationships with people, and they learn how to leverage those relationships and in a way that can contribute positively to the success of their business. Entrepreneurs are passionate. Passion drives what they do. When you are lacking passion as an entrepreneur, you might find that you do lack motivation. You might find that you get very easily discouraged, especially when you're not receiving those returns in those after hard work, so after that long contract or whatever business transaction that you were chasing after falls through. A passion can drive you. Passion drives you. It's like the energy that is extremely important for an entrepreneur to have. Now, there are 4 different types of entrepreneurs. The first one is a sole proprietor. A sole proprietor is an entrepreneur who owns the business by themselves, alone, but when the business is not registered. It may be termed differently perhaps in your country, but I'm using a terminology here that is known in South Africa. Now, you may be a sole entrepreneur and still have staff, or you may be a one-man run show. Number 2, an entrepreneur can be an employer with a registered company. Whatever categorization that your country may use to label registered businesses. In South Africa, we have something that we used to call a closed corporation. Those have now been discontinued. And currently, we have private company or PTY Limited, which here is a business. You can still be one man as a director of the company, or you can be a few of you with multiple staff members. Thirdly, there is an innovator. An innovator is someone who then designs solutions and sells them. An innovator does not necessarily have a team, or they may have a team even, but they don't necessarily have a team. You can think of someone like Thomas Edison, for example, who invented the light bulb. We can think of many different, we can think of maybe Steve Jobs, who's the founder of Apple. So innovators invent and design products and sell them. Either sell them to corporations or sell them to the markets. But they don't necessarily have a traditional business in a sense of they're receiving products every day and selling them. They can work on one particular business idea for years, and then once the product is complete, then take the product to the market and then make a mass amount of wealth from that product. And then lastly, we have a social entrepreneur. Social entrepreneurship, we can think about them as activist business people. Like a business person who is an activist. A social entrepreneur finds solutions that solve community problems and social problems. Not only that, but they also may include the community in that process. It could be perhaps that they're running some kind of a non-governmental organization, an NGO, or non-profit organization. They could be raising funds through donors, but in that process, they generate income for themselves, and they could also employ either volunteers or actually employ people who are getting paid to be able to run the organization. Or a social entrepreneur may just be a mobilizer of different businesses, even within the community. The social entrepreneur finds entrepreneurial solutions that solve community problems and social problems and involves the community. You can think of a social entrepreneur as somebody who is an activist, but at the same time running their activism as a business. So through the activities, they generate an income for themselves as well as for those who are part of their team. whether the team be made up of volunteers or be the team that is made up of actually paid employees. That is what a social entrepreneur is. You can think of someone that is dealing perhaps with a social, let's say there is a problem of child abuse in a particular environment, and then they set up shop, or they set up an office in the community, generate funds from donors internationally, locally, whatever the case might be, to address and to deal with those social problems. Perhaps training people from the community on how to deal with those social issues. And those who are being trained are getting paid, and then they go into the community and deal specifically with those social problems. Or they could just be running a lot of what they do is, although it may be pro bono, although a lot of what they do may be pro bono, they still are generating an income. And without generating an income, and even if it's from donors, they are unable to operate. So that's what a social entrepreneur may be, or a social entrepreneur is. That is what a social entrepreneur is. Now, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in South Africa is a gentleman by the name of Dr. Richard Makonya, who is now deceased. And he said once, I'm a 96-year-old and I'm not going to retire. And the day that I retire would be the day, as you say to me, Lalagahle, which means rest in peace. Then that would be my retirement. Here are a few other factors that the entrepreneur has been mindful of. An entrepreneur has been mindful of their own character. They've got to be mindful of their experience and continue to work towards building and acquiring more experience in whatever field of operation that they might be in. An entrepreneur has to be mindful of their competencies. How well are they able to operate? How well are they able to perform their entrepreneurial duties or entrepreneurial activities to make the success of their venture? An entrepreneur has to be mindful of their own growth areas. It is important for an entrepreneur, which we'll talk about later on, to understand what is their own SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The entrepreneur has to be mindful of the assets that are required or the assets that they currently have in order to run or to start the business. If they don't have those assets, they will at least note them down so that they can plan as they go along to acquire those assets. An entrepreneur has to be mindful of their own needs, the needs that they have as an individual, and also the needs of a business, but most importantly, the needs of customers. Your needs as an entrepreneur talks to your own efficiency. You need to know what it is that you need to be, the person that you need to be, the kind of entrepreneur that you need to be in order to make success of your business. Secondly, you need to also understand the business itself. What are the resources, the assets that the business needs, the skills that the business needs, the competencies that the business needs. And then lastly, the needs of the market, the needs of the customers, because this is where the success of the business lies.
One of the most important principles in mindset development is the principle of limitation. Understanding that human beings are limited is a vital component of being able to unpack what mindsets are about. Mindsets are categories of thinking which impact vital tools that we use to make decisions in our lives, such as belief systems, value systems, principles themselves, convictions, attitudes, our behavior. Mindsets are vital in how we experience life and also in what we're determined to be and what we're determined to not be. Now, how are we limited? We're limited in 4 different ways. First thing is that we're limited in substance. Our substance is deteriorating. The law of thermodynamics determines that pretty much everything is deteriorating. So from the moment that we're born, as much as we go through the process of growth, we're actually beginning to die. That is why we have diseases. That's why we can be harmed through accidents, being in contact with each other.
As we can see right now, even with the whole issue of COVID-19, that our substance is vulnerable to all sorts of dangers that is out there. Secondly, is the issue of our presence, that we are localized to one particular location of existence, which determines the kind of information, the data that we gather, which in turn affects what we mentioned already, our principles, our value systems, our belief systems, our attitudes towards certain things, and these different tools that we use to make decisions. And then thirdly is the issue of ability. Ability is vital in understanding mindset development, because that talks to our ability to control how things work, our performance structure. We are beings that have limited power. We're beings that have limited understanding. We're beings that have limited presence. We're beings that have limited presence as far as what we can be able to change or control. The last thing is the issue of existence. The fact that we are born and then we eventually do die, that's a vital component of understanding mindset development. And these four things spell out something that's vital as well, that is control. Our limited structure means that we also have limited control. If we have limited control, we also have limited functionality. Functionality is our ability to use our performances, our skills, our talents, our knowledge, our IQ, our EQ, whatever that constitutes a performance structure to do things that we want, that are beneficial for us, that are beneficial for those that we care about. We have a limited ability to do that. Therefore, we have limited control, and consequently, we also do have a limited functionality. So functionality is another very important aspect or component of understanding mindset development, but we're not covering this right now. So it's important to understand that we're limited. And because we're limited, then we worry about how things impact us. Intellectually, we are concerned about how things impact us. We are therefore oriented in our thinking to be more aware of things that are potentially harmful, things that are dangerous, things that can limit the already limited control that we have. And therefore, part of our ability to overcome this is that we have to come up with ways to overcome or to maximize whatever limited control that we already have. And that again has to do with impact. So whatever it is that is harmful to us, we got to find ways to avoid it. If we cannot avoid it, we have to eliminate it. If we cannot eliminate it, we want to minimize the impact. If we cannot minimize the impact, we want to then manage it. On the other hand, whatever it is that is beneficial to us, we want to first of all find it. If we cannot find it, we want to create it. If we cannot create it, we want to maximize on it. If we cannot maximize on it, at the very least, we want to maintain it. And this is where we decide where we begin to thrive. And all of this has to do with the fact that we are limited beings.